In medieval Europe, killing this bird without permission could cost you your hand, but if you had the right bloodline, it could crown your banquet table. If you've ever wondered what power tasted like in the Middle Ages, you're in the right place. Hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. The swan wasn't just food, it was property, it was privilege, and in England especially, it was law. Only royalty and the highest nobility could legally own and consume swans. Kings granted specific rights to bishops, abbots, and powerful landowners. These weren't hunting trophies, they were living symbols of who controlled the land, the water, and the people. In medieval England, France, and parts of Germany, swans belonged to the crown. Commoners couldn't touch them. Poaching a swan wasn't theft, it was treason against the natural order itself. So why swans? Why this bird above all others? Picture a great hall. Torches flicker against stone walls. The Lord sits at the head of a long table. Guests in silk and velvet wait in silence. Then the doors open. A roasted swan is carried in on a silver platter. But this isn't just meat. The bird has been skinned carefully, its feathers preserved. After roasting, the skin and feathers are sewn back on. The swan looks alive, majestic, regal. Its beak is often gilded with gold leaf. Sometimes the mouth holds a piece of cloth soaked in spirits, set aflame as it enters the room. The presentation alone could take an hour. Musicians play, poets recite, knights make vows over the swan, pledging loyalty or promising deeds of valor. This ritual was called the vow of the swan, a ceremony so formal it bordered on sacred. Then, finally, the carving begins. Only the highest-ranking noble at the table carves the swan. It's a performance. Each cut is deliberate. The best portions go to the most important guests. To receive swan meat is to be acknowledged, to be seen. But here's the thing. Swan doesn't taste like chicken. It doesn't even taste like duck. Medieval accounts describe it as tough, dark, and fishy. Some sources say it was greasy and required heavy spicing just to make it palatable. So why serve it at all? Today, swans are protected across most of Europe. In England, all unmarked mute swans technically still belong to the crown. Harming one is a criminal offense. We see swans as graceful, peaceful creatures, symbols of beauty and romance. The idea of roasting one and parading it through a dining hall feels barbaric. But medieval nobles didn't see cruelty, they saw order. To them, the swan was a gift from God, placed on earth to reflect divine hierarchy. Its white feathers symbolized purity, its size and strength symbolized power, its rarity made it precious. Eating swan wasn't about taste, it was about what it represented. And it wasn't just about showing off, it was about reinforcing a system. Every guest at that table understood the message. Some are born to rule, and some are born to serve. The swan made that visible. Let's go deeper into the preparation, because the process itself was a display of wealth. Swans were often raised in captivity on estate lands. They required care, feeding, and protection. A lord who could afford to maintain a flock of swans was broadcasting his resources. When a feast was planned, the swan was killed, plucked, and cleaned by specialized kitchen staff. Some households employed swan masters whose sole job was preparing these birds. The meat was sometimes marinated for days in wine, vinegar, and spices like cloves, ginger, and pepper. These spices were expensive, imported from the East. Using them in quantity was another status symbol. The bird was then stuffed with mixtures that might include smaller birds, chestnuts, dried fruits, or breadcrumbs soaked in broth. It was sewn shut and roasted on a spit for hours. But the real artistry came after cooking. Tailors, not just cooks, were brought in to reattach the feathers. The skin had to be stretched and stitched with precision. Any tear would ruin the illusion. The final product wasn't just food. It was theater. It was sculpture. it was propaganda. England's swan laws were particularly strict. By the 15th century, only those with land worth 5 marks per year or more could own swans. Marks on the birds' beaks identified ownership. These marks were recorded in official rolls. Stealing a swan, even an egg, carried severe penalties: fines, imprisonment, in some cases, mutilation. A peasant caught with swan meat could lose a hand. The message was clear: this bird is not for you. But the laws went even further. Swans were considered royal fowl, a classification that placed them above ordinary game. Hunting them required explicit permission from the king. Even nobles needed writs or charters to keep swans on their land. This wasn't about conservation, it was about control. Swans lived on rivers, lakes, and marshes, common lands where peasants fished and gathered reeds. By claiming ownership of the swans, the crown extended its authority into those spaces. The bird became a tool of governance. In France, similar customs existed, though less codified. French kings served swan at coronation feasts and diplomatic banquets. It appeared in illuminated manuscripts, often depicted alongside kings and saints. Germany had its own traditions. In some regions, roasted swan was a Christmas dish for the nobility. Recipes survive in medieval German cookbooks, detailing complex sauces made from the bird's blood, wine, and spices. But across all these cultures, one theme remains constant. The swan was never just food, it was a statement. So what did the swan really mean? In a world without mass media, without photography, without instant communication, rituals like this did the work of propaganda. When a noble hosted a swan feast, every guest left with a memory. They had witnessed power, they had tasted exclusivity, and they had been reminded of their place in the hierarchy. For the Lord, it was a way to consolidate alliances, to honor guests, to display generosity without giving up actual power. It's consumed, and the moment is gone, but the impression remains. For the church, swans had their own symbolism. White feathers suggested purity and the divine. Some theologians compared the swan's grace on water to the soul's journey through life. Eating swan at a religious feast, like the installation of a bishop, tied the sacred to the social order. But there's a darker layer here. Medieval society was obsessed with classification. Everything had its place: humans, animals, plants, all arranged in a great chain of being that descended from God. The swan sat near the top of the animal world. To consume it was to literally take that status into your body. It was a form of sympathetic magic, a belief that eating noble animals made you more noble. This belief extended to other foods. Peacocks, herons, and bitterns were also elite meats, each with its own symbolic weight. But the swan held a unique position because of its association with royalty and its legal protection. And here's what makes it so alien to us. Medieval people didn't separate the symbolic from the real. To them, the swan was genuinely a royal creature. Its elegance wasn't metaphorical, it was intrinsic. We live in a world where food is mostly fuel. We care about taste, nutrition, ethics. But in the Middle Ages, food was identity. It was cosmology. What you ate determined who you were in the eyes of God and man. The swan feast wasn't cruelty. It wasn't wastefulness. It was ritual. And rituals don't have to make practical sense. They make social sense. When we look back at medieval swan feasts, it's easy to feel superior, to think we've evolved past such absurdity. But have we? We still use food to signal status: Michelin star restaurants, rare ingredients, dishes that cost more than most people earn in a week. The medium has changed, the impulse hasn't. The difference is that medieval people were honest about their status consumption. They didn't pretend the swan tasted better than chicken. They served it because it was rare, beautiful, and restricted. The meal was the message. The swan reminds us that food has never been just about survival. It's about meaning, about power, about showing the world who you are or who you want to be. And maybe that's why the medieval swan feast feels so uncomfortable. It holds up a mirror. It shows us that the distance between their world and ours isn't as vast as we'd like to believe. The swan is still royal. We just no longer admit we want to taste it.
Thank you for sticking with me through the first Histo Frog video of 2026. I hope you found it interesting and useful. If you think the Swan Feast was truly elite, drop a comment below and tell me what dish you'd like to explore next. See you in the next one!